Cinema in the 1960s was falling out of favour with the kids. The problem was that film studios had become out of step with the audience. So as a result, they were releasing the sort of films which were popular for the generation before, but expecting them to resonate with the youth of the day. When those films stopped working at the box office, they doubled down. They changed the cast and basically made the same film again. As a result, the audience slowly drifted away from the silver screen in order to consume their media elsewhere, which at the time was drive-in cinemas and independent picture houses, which were noted for playing things more relevant to the youth market, but were often derided for its low level of art. It was only the release of Easy Rider which alerted the attention of the audience enough to bring them back to the cinema. That film had a small enough budget to make a profit quickly, and started the ball rolling for a decade of filmmaking which was dominated by directors who were hitherto unenthused by mainstream cinema. In the early 1980s, there was a historically large crash in the video game industry. Home gaming had become something of a phenomenon in the late 70s after the creation of a new version of Pong, which people could now play at home. Before that point, everyone had to go to an arcade to get their video game fix, and after seeing the killing that Pong was making on the market, competitors quickly arose. You had the Atari VCS, the Odyssey, Intellivision, ColecoVision and Vectrex to name just a few. Some of these consoles had exclusive content, but there are also games which were available on all or most platforms. The market became saturated so quickly that it would have been hard for even the keenest of video game players to keep up with new releases. For business to continue, games had to be made cheaper and quicker. Soon what would have taken them 6 months to program was being knocked out in 5 weeks. When these games, which inevitably lacked the luster of previous successes, flopped, the video game market decided to invest big money into buying properties which made their names elsewhere, such as popular titles from the arcades or movie spin-offs. These copies didn't match up to the quality of the originals, which they were largely advertised off the back of. So after a long run of failures, these companies closed down, forcing the video game retailers to sell off everything they had as cheap as possible. Games which once sold for $40 a piece were now being priced up for 1/10 of that, and still not selling because word of mouth was so poor. It took 3 years for the video game industry to get back on its feet, and the failure of the other consoles cleared the way for the Japanese-made Nintendo to dominate the market for the next decade. These two events remind me very much of present-day cinema. A large problem is the streaming model has taken over everything, and the biggest downside of that is there's no money in it. If you don't believe me, then ask a musician how their paychecks are both before and after Spotify took over. The good news, as far as any producer is concerned, is no films are bombs anymore. All they have to do is sit dormant and unwatched on the streaming service until the subscribers' fees pays off the loss. The bad news is that it means there's also no massive successes, such as Easy Rider was. If a small film garners a lot of views, it doesn't increase the takings any, unless it's enticing new subscribers. And I don't know anyone who's signed up to a service for the sake of one movie. So what has been inadvertently created is a system where the makers of bad films feel no loss, and the makers of good films feel no gain. And no one ever stopped to question if this would do anything for the quality of the output. The only real way left to make money in movies, now that the profitable DVD market is less favourable than streaming, is cinema release. But any regular cinema goer will have noticed the change in theatrical releases of late. It's now bigger movies, it's all action and spectacle with very large budgets. Your average Hollywood movie has to take 2.5 times its budget to be officially in profit. Solo, a Star Wars story, had a budget of $300 million, so it had to take $750 million to achieve that goal, which it didn't do. The reason why is very few movies make that much money at the box office, particularly after having 5 other Star Wars films released theatrically before it. When was the last time you saw a romantic comedy on the big screen? They're still being made, all you needed 2 cute stars and a witty script, but they don't seem to get theatrically released anymore. When was the last time you saw a quirky comedy with one of the stars of Saturday Night Live acting the fool? Well, if you have Netflix, you could watch a different one every night of the week. But on the big screen? Not for a long time. What about a coming-of-age drama about a rock band on tour? Or a cop and his dog movie? The common consensus is people don't go to the cinema to see these sorts of movies anymore. But how could we? They're not shown. The cinema now caters for one demographic, and streaming is meant to be there to satisfy the rest. Yet most people spend more time browsing their provider than watching it. you want people to get out of their armchairs and into the theatres, then you have to give them something they can't get at home. That doesn't mean 3D movies where the chairs rock. It's well-told stories with witty scripts and charismatic leads. Make them for a budget which is logically possible to recoup, and then give them big releases. Don't put them on streaming services simultaneously, as they'll only get pirated and shared for free. You can do that once they've made their money back. This is a simple business model of someone we should be trying to emulate. Roger Corman. I'm Scott Kingsnorth and I'm making a move.